I need help, boss.
Stands up and says it louder. He goes, I have a really big penis.
We're the NSAA. We're never serious about anything except grip ball.
I have drifted an aircraft carrier.
What?
To an extent, but you'll be out there alone as fuck. There's no.
Just bumping into people by osmosis of dopeness, you know?
3, 2, 1. We're rolling.
Welcome, everybody. It is the Happy Hoodlums podcast. It's your host, the Happy Hoodlum himself, Mr. Kemper Woodruff, and we have Zachary Hoodlum, Mr. Zachary Sampson, big man himself. You put up 300 today, right? That video?
That was a couple days. It was 2 days ago, but yeah, 300.
Dude, to do that at home by yourself is a huge accomplishment. So how does that feel?
Well, I've done it before.
That was just a deadlift, right?
Yeah, and that's far from what my 1 rep PR is.
What is that?
My 1 rep PR is 405.
Woo, that boy getting big.
300 is I did that for 2 sets of 5.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't touched that number in probably like 2 or 3 months. So it was a little different. My back is definitely a little extra sore, but
okay.
It felt good.
Hey, what is like your parents look at you like while you're doing that?
They don't.
Really?
Mm-mm.
I would be sitting there like a fucking cheerleader, I swear to God. My kids start lifting 300-400 pounds in the living room.
Yeah, my dad just watches TV. Sometimes he looks over at me and he's like, "That ain't shit," and he'll be like, "You ain't strong" or some shit. He'll say something to provoke me. And you know, yeah. So
your dad's awesome.
Yeah, he's funny. But yeah, it was good. It was
anything else eventful happened this week?
Well, another lifting thing. There was the video I posted before that deadlift was the bench press one.
Okay.
Which was just me. I benched my body weight 6 times.
Okay.
And that was the most reps I've ever done with 185 pounds.
Nice, man.
So, I'm trying to get my 225 pound bench. I haven't. My bench record is 217 and a half, and so I'm 7.5 pounds off. But every time I make that 7.5 pound jump, I go 4 or 5 inches above my chest. It just stops. It won't go any higher than that. And so I'm really fucking working. I'm trying to cover all the bases and shit, but
get that 185 up easier and then move up from there.
Yeah, so I'm on
That's the plan.
I'm on like a 3-week program right now where the first week you do 65% of your 1 rep max. So you do 3 sets of bench. And you do 65%, 75, and then 85. And then the next week I think you jump it up a little bit, but you reduce the reps. I would have to look at it on my phone, but yeah. And so each week you're upping the amount of weight and you're kind of reducing the amount of reps, working up to a 1 rep max.
Way cool.
Yeah.
I love getting scientific about stuff. I think, honestly, creating your life is like an art that we're really not taught about in school.
For real?
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I really look at my life now, and this is something I've been doing a lot lately. Just kind of taking all the different areas of my life and finding maybe like one thing I can focus on in this area.
Yeah.
Be like, kind of, I don't know. I don't want to overwhelm myself, right? But I don't want to underwhelm myself, shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'd rather underperform, striving to be excellent, than be able to make good across the board.
I like that.
That just lets me know of an area that I need to work harder in,
yeah.
Or re-strategize. That's kind of how I look at it.
I like that saying. I would rather underperform shooting for the stars than just do good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's what you said, but I really like that. I've been actually thinking about, like, lately, I've had, like, these thoughts of, like, what am I passionate about? Because looking for a job doing video editing isn't as interesting to me as doing the stuff that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so like, I don't think that as I don't think I'm passionate about creating someone else's fucking projects, as much as I am as being able to do the projects that we're doing. And so I've been and we talked about this last week, but I've been questioning if I want to do that as my career outside of what Happy Hoodlums is.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been kind of having a hard time figuring that one out.
Well, I think that's
And
totally understandable and a good way to, or a good place to start if you don't necessarily know what you want quite yet.
yeah,
Look at what you don't want. Like that's a huge part of time management that
yeah,
I don't think is really talked about. Like obviously it's an inherent part of it because hey, don't do what you don't want to do.
yeah,
But how do you make that assessment? You know, how do you look at your strategy in a real way and figure out what to cut down on and where you need to, what you can outsource in your day-to-day life,
yeah.
you know?
I've kind of because I know, like, I can't sit, um, I can't do a job where I'm sitting all day, but I also can't do a job where I'm like, it's a mindless job.
Mhm.
And so it's like a fucking, I don't even know what I don't want to do. All I know I don't want to do is I don't want to stock shelves or work at a fucking factory or fucking whatever. I know what I
Mhm.
can't do because of my eyes. Um, and so, there's some jobs that I can't do. Like, I can't work in a restaurant. That's just not possible. Um, or any type of thing where you have to have solid awareness about where you are and what's around you type shit. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of hard. And because of, you know, it seems to be, my eyes seem to be getting to me a little bit more lately
Mm.
than usual. Um, because I really want to just go do shit sometimes, and I can't just go do shit.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard. And then I start thinking about the job that I want to do, and then it's kind of snowballs. But but yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
I think it kind of comes back to like we aren't really made for jobs,
yeah,
and if you don't make your job and like determine that, then you're going to do a job that's made for a fill in the blank, right?
yeah,
And that's the beauty of capitalism, but it comes with a level of responsibility where a lot of people don't want to look in themselves and actually ask those questions because now I have to deal with something,
yeah,
that I may not readily have an answer for, right? They don't see the fact that, like, just because you don't have an answer doesn't mean that you're just banging your head against a wall, right?
yeah,
You're doing it for a reason. Posing that question emits this signal to, God and the universe that, hey, I want clarity on this thing, you know? And it draws to yourself this an experience that will give you a little bit more clarity. Because of your willingness and openness and kind of that open-endedness, being willing to experience whatever is what will draw the in a crazy way, the more catered to, the more specific experience that's going to lead you to that thing quicker than if you're hard headed. If you're hard headed and you think that you know that you want something, but you don't know what it is,
yeah,
but you're stubborn about what you're willing to kind of try and dabble with, sometimes it's harder to have that circumstance lined up because you're emotionally unready for it longer because you carry a tension about it inside of yourself. Whereas if you're just kind of open and you're like, yeah, I'll do whatever, and you're having fun with it, just that vibration is different. You're closer to that higher frequency of the progress that you're really looking to create. Because I think progress is really the beauty of it. Just that feeling of being on track and just, I know I'm moving in the right direction. It has a satisfaction in it.
Yeah.
I want to correct something I said earlier, though, because I said outsource things in your daily life. I meant to say you can't outsource, so you have to automate certain aspects of your life or see where you can make it easier with a strategy. But the things that you have to deal with, make those things enjoyable. Seek to enjoy those things, whether it's your family or even just little things like having money to buy gas
Yeah.
rather than being like, man, this fucking gas, Because if
Yeah.
you've really been broke, like if you've really been broke, then anytime you buy gas, like little shit like that, it doesn't wear off, bro. Like I'm here to tell you, it doesn't wear off. Like you are still like happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to remind myself today because I was getting really fucking hard on myself and shit like that. I had to remind
Mm-hmm.
myself how good my life is and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like I had to repeatedly, like in my head, like, yo, remember how good your life is, over and over and over and over and over. And I'm like, yeah. And so that helped a little bit because it helped me remember like what the things that I am grateful for. Um and
You
yeah.
know, I just want to touch on something, um, because my shout out to my bro Gunner. Okay, talking about semantics. Me and him all like I'll be explaining something and he'll find like one word and like highlight this word, and
Yeah.
oftentimes I can't get my full idea out. But he's taught me something,
Yeah.
about this because the way that you talk to yourself, like the way that you phrase that, remember your life is good, like just saying remember has an implication that you forgot. And so you can't actually pivot on that super cleanly because although you're saying that I have this thing, you're also acknowledging the absence of it in the same thing just because of your wording. Now, honestly, the universe, God, does not hear our words. It, he hears our frequency of our heart, what your emotional intention is, and as well as where you actually are, right? You get the result of where you actually are. But if your intention is in a place that's good, right? It isn't in vain. It's almost like credited on energetically, right? And adds to the momentum in the ethereal realm of creation, right? In the non-physical realm where this desire is like taking shape and trying to find its way to you in a physical way. Um, Sometimes you're not ready for it. And so I may be saying something to myself like, remember how blessed I am, right? I really am trying to get to that blessing and seek good and whatever it may be, right? But emotionally, where I might be at is in a different place. And I can't quite make that leap to let that emotion in, that I'm really wanting to feel right now. So it's not like a clean pivot from I know what I don't want, I know what I do want, right? Does that make sense?
It does, but
It might not apply to you directly in
yeah, I
this
don't
moment.
think it
That might
does.
not be what
Yeah,
you were feeling, but I think
because
it's just a good
what
example.
what was happening was I was feeling down about the things that I don't have.
Mhm.
And so I had to remind myself, just because you don't have those things, all of these other things that you do have are still fucking amazing. And that's where it was. It was like I didn't yeah.
But I think what I'm saying is, now this goes back to that like law of attraction. You have the things that you desire. Like your desires are unique to you, and there's enough in this world for you to have it, right? And so when you say that you don't have it, that's what brings you down. And even it, because you can't put one thing down to lift something else up. It just doesn't work,
Yeah.
you know? And so in a sense that's what you're doing, and what I'm saying is there's this other way of going about it, and it kind of comes down to how you internally narrate like the verbiage of your life, you know um because words hold power, you know and how we connotate them in our mind. And so I guess what I'm saying is that you already have those things, although you haven't received them in the physical form, right? You have them in the non-physical form, but you don't have them physically in your hand yet. But you have this stuff over here that's really fucking awesome. And so you're just like, I have so much good going for me. And you can pivot. I don't know how to word that right now. But you can pivot off that in a very clean way.
Yeah, for me it's remember. Like, hey,
Yeah.
remember, motherfucker. You got all this shit over here. Turn the fuck around. Stop crying because you can't fucking jump the fence and go to that thing. Turn around and look at the shit that you do have. That's what that for me. That's a clean pivot. Like I don't feel fucking. I don't feel like because I still remember everything that I fucking love about my life. I got fucking great parents that fucking support the shit out of me. I got my brother. I got my friends. I got the podcast. I got I got my health. I can weight lift. All this other shit I got going on. It's fucking yeah.
You set me up perfectly, bro, because I really was going to say, I think that's where the whole progress component of this comes into play, is knowing that you have these things teed up that you're working towards, and I had this epiphany the other day, where I was actually, it was just like yesterday. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at podcasts
Yeah.
from Joe Rogan because I didn't have Spotify for a while. And I
Mhm.
finally broke and downloaded. I don't know why I'm so reluctant to add apps to my phone, but I add an app to my phone and I'm looking at Spotify and reading the descriptions of these people, people I really admire, people I want to learn from, right? And
Mhm.
a lot of them have the same descriptives of things that I've already done, although I haven't completed a few of the projects that I have,
Yeah.
in the backpack, whether it's a book, whether it's the podcast, right? Filmmaker, designers, artists, all these different things. I'm like, okay, I am so on track with that. And I was down on myself for so long. But now, since I've put work in for long enough, I can look, and even though I'm not like completely through this phase, like I'm not on super boss mode yet, in
Yeah.
the where I stand today. But in terms of when I look at, if someone was to describe me on paper, you know, we own wonderful entertainment. We have the podcast. We've designed clothes, you know, books in the works, and all these different things. I'm like, we are peers with these people, although their accolades and their experience put them beyond us into a realm of like mentorship, right?
Mhm.
So I'm the student in that relationship for sure. Um, but it's really interesting to be able to now reassess my life and see all these things that I thought I might have fallen short in kind of sprouting. And really, they were just seeds, and I thought they got scattered and, that I didn't tend to them properly. And I was really down on myself for not completing these things. But it was only because I didn't see them in me. It was like, although I was doing these things, I wasn't those things. But it's like, no, that thing got birthed through me, that idea, you know?
Yeah.
And as you complete those final projects, you start looking at it the same way you look at, say, reading a story about someone you really admire and them telling you things in their life that they've accomplished. It's just a trip when the tables turn on yourself, because you can find yourself in those moments where you feel like you're having a tailspin, your day's not going your way, and you can make that I'm grateful for kind of assessment a lot easier and find your faith a lot easier because you've been working towards it. You got the progress behind you. Thoughts?
I think you said it pretty well. I don't really have a whole lot to add to it, to be honest.
Woo! Your boy got one. Let's go. It wasn't just a ramble.
I
That's
did.
what we
I'll
like.
be honest. I did get a little distracted because there was a fucking fire hydrant or something right out my house. Fucking just blaring.
Fire.
It's a fire fucking
Oh,
truck.
and
Fire truck.
okay.
Yeah, fire hydrant. What the fuck was I saying? It was fucking. Yeah, it was
Oh,
going
what's
on
going
real
on,
loud.
bro?
So I was like, "What the fuck was that?" And so I was listening, but yeah.
I
Um.
was listening to a speech by a dude named Bob Proctor,
Mhm.
and he was talking about the three things that most people want. He said people don't necessarily want to be like a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
They just want no financial concerns, to wake up excited, uh, and happy about how they're going to spend their day. And then the third thing is just to mingle with other people that are upbeat, and productive and creative.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of look at life. And when it comes to like creating your life and assessing the life you want to live, if you just use those simple three kind of like priorities, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
to assess things with, like, does it check these boxes and does it round my life out, you know, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Because no financial concerns is actually like super duper attainable.
It is. Uh. It's pretty obtainable. I think the hardest things for most people is the mental aspects of things, so being excited and um and I guess when you don't have to worry about your finances, it's a little bit easier to be excited to wake up, and a little bit easier to meet people and receive how cool they are when you don't have to worry about money as much.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But then the question is it like why put that standard on yourself? Like why put any conditions upon your happiness that sometimes might be more or less attainable in the here and now. You see what I'm saying? Like I I think that's still like that's not a perfect pure level thought, right? And I say that because, bro, and it's got to be different when you got like kids at home and stuff like that. You got to keep the lights on, things of that nature. There's levels to things, but no matter what, dude, you can't put like contingencies on your happiness. whether that's a person, whether that's your job, like whatever it is, bro, you have what you have to work with. And the truth is, you're infinite, bro. You have a ton of stuff to work with. And if you see your thoughts as valuable and you start assessing your thoughts based on their worth, like to you, based on how they make you feel, do they make you feel energized? Do they make you feel inspired? Do they make you feel that you can do something about your situation? Do they empower you? Or are you a slave to this thought? You know? And really look at it in that level of like dire circumstances, you start changing the way that you assess even things like money, you know? Like if I gotta be hungry, I gotta be hungry, but I don't have to be hungry and sad. You know, shit is really fucked up. if I and this comes down to like levels of struggle, like, and everybody's bad is relative, right? Some people just don't have the same kind of experiences as other people, and that's a good thing. Thank goodness there's people that can learn in under lighter circumstances than more dire circumstances, you know?
Yeah.
Because we don't want anyone to really suffer. Like there ain't no need for that. Life puts you through the ringer, but when you've really, really like been hungry before or really had to survive with very little money, or straight up not had money, like, bro, there's nothing I can do about it type of shit. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. We gotta get some candles in this bitch or something, you know?
Mhm.
The ceiling's leaking. Like, I don't know, there ain't shit I can do about it. Like, get
Yeah.
some pots and pans out. Like, I can't let that ruin my day, you know, because then it just sucks for me. Now I'm kind of painting myself in a corner that I gotta get out of. You know, eventually I'm gonna find myself backed against the wall and then I'm gonna freak out. That's when breaking points happen.
You know, it's funny because usually that's how I am. Most of the time, probably like 95% of the time, I'm like, I'm happy or content regardless of kind of what's going on. I'm like, there's a problem. Okay. What is it? Can we fix it? Let's do it. Um, and the only times that I really get kind of down on myself are about the things that um, keep me from being who I want to be. And the biggest
Mm,
one is my eyes. And so then I start getting real down. I'm like, fuck. The things that I want to be able to do, I can't do. And so then I start, then I go into a little bit of a spiral. But,
mm-hmm.
and then a couple of days goes by and I'm able to kind of, or I am able to pull myself out of it and then get back to who I am. But yeah, I
I
think that's
think so.
hard for a lot of people though, because everyone don't have people who can have conversations with each other like this, where they can be like, "Well, dude, you have to be happy regardless. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to even see when something good is happening and then capitalize on it."
The truth is, bro, your spirit tells you this all the time. You don't need another single human being to talk to. And that's why I say
Well,
it ain't about religion, it's about God. It's about your relationship through your spirit. Because there's that little voice that will never stop saying, "Yo, but maybe it'll work." You know, like, "No, you should try this." There's always another "you should try." You
there
know, give it a shot. And
I
so
go ahead.
to me, bro, like when I look at that, and that's what I mean when I say you got to value your thoughts. Like there and your emotions, like there's truly feedback in there, and your passions and all that kind of stuff, because you were made perfectly for what you want to do. And it's like the the beautiful contradictions almost of what like hold us back, whether them be physical or like mental, emotional. Like, how interesting is it that you're a videographer and you have a job that revolves around using your eyes, and yet you have this ailment, that hinders you from doing it in the same luxury that other people have. But out of that is the foundation and such fertile ground to create a new way of doing something, new systems of productivity, you know, that I think hold a lot of genius in there. And like when people tell the Zach Sampson story, and we're looking at this with 2020 hindsight vision, people are going to be like, that's so fucking dope. And they're going to understand why I called you the blind shooter, the blind sniper for years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't give a fuck about legally blind this or that. You're the illest when you get a camera in your hand. And I believe that that passion is put into you for a reason and you're perfect for it, you know? And to kind of end or conclude that thought with just something kind of off topic but still on topic. Uh, I think I was watching a Bob Proctor talk, and he was also saying that books are essentially movies, and it sounds like a no shit kind of thing, but he was like, it's paintings with words, and pictures with words over and over and over again. And that's something that you'll always be able to do, but truly believe in my heart, I don't believe you'll ever go blind. So, I believe you may have this condition that forces you to be more creative in different ways than other people, and the legacy that you'll leave behind will be 100% unique, and that you're made perfect for that. You know?
Yeah. Don't put your phone on your laptop, by the way.
Oh, was it shaking and fucking everything up?
Yeah, it was chopping up your mic a little bit, but it was still audible a little bit.
Okay.
Just because when it vibrates, it like causes that stupid noise cancellation shit, and it, yeah. um, I need to start writing down my thoughts while you're talking, because I'll forget. Because you'll talk for so long, I'll be like, fuck, there's no spot to jump in here. I gotta write it down.
I'm trying to get better at that,
Yeah.
like getting more concise and explaining things. Um, One of my problems is like I really can't claim the knowledge that comes through me sometimes. It's like I'm learning it as I'm telling it to you. It's the closest thing to freestyling that I can really
I think
compare.
I don't think it's that. I think it's that you jump from topic to topic so quickly that there's no breathing room.
Mm.
And then you've gone through 5 topics, and now I have to either go off of the last one you talked about or go through each 5. And then if I say one thing, you might go on 4 more topics on that one thing off of the first topic I
Oh, man.
talked about.
I'm just giving you the 5-paragraph essays. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to dumb down my answers and shit.
But no, you don't have to dumb them down. That's just what it is. That's just how it is. So I just need to start writing. I know how you are, and I just need to start writing down what
See,
I'm
that's what
wanting
I'm
to
saying.
do.
Right there. That's your genius. That's what I'm talking about. We just come up with new ways of doing the same shit.
Yeah.
And as long as you're doing that, you're doing something right, and you're gonna get it all together eventually.
Another thing that I need to do is I stopped reading 3 weeks ago because I like pulled a muscle in my back, and all my reading was pretty much during workouts. And so during that 3 weeks, I stopped reading because I was only working out like twice a week because because of my back. Didn't want to pull it more. And so uh I've fallen out of the habit of like tracking my workouts and reading. So I have to like, now that this is my first week back, I need to start building that back into my system and help me
Gotta
start.
stop reading so intensely, bro.
Dude, no, look, dude, I've come to the conclusion that if I'm not constantly trying to upgrade something in my life, I feel like shit.
Mm.
And then when I degrade or regress, I feel like shit. And so then it reminds me that I have to bring these things. I have to do these things for me.
You know what I would say?
What?
I would say just observe. Like, allow both things to happen. Definitely continue to progress. Do that. But notice what happens when you hit a certain level of success, right? Um, this goes back to something I heard Tony Robbins say about us being like thermostats, right? If you know that you're like 77% or 77-degree person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to like fucking 65 degrees, something kicks in your brain and goes, "What am I doing down here? I'm not 65%," or
Yeah.
degree goes back up. But it also works if you start doing really good. You start doing really good, you start looking around and being like, "Oh, these aren't my people. Like, I'm a 77% or where, right?" So you come back down there and you start like self-sabotaging, but you do it in different ways in different areas of your life. For some people it might be an addiction, be it women, gambling, drugs, whatever,
Mm.
alcohol.
Yeah.
And for other people it'll be something else that they tend to do. um, but if you just allow yourself to observe that, you start to learn your essence. And once you learn your essence, which is really what I think we're not taught, that we should be taught early, because inside of that has the keys to all these other questions that we kind of are trying to get to in one form of another, of who am I? What was I made to do?
Yeah.
What was I put here to do? So I don't spend my time doing something that's unfulfilling to my spirit, and, that feels purposeful, that's enjoyable, all that kind of stuff, right? And once you start observing yourself, you realize, like, oh, this is the area of my life where my doubt shows itself, or an insecurity, a flaw. And if you're able to kind of unpack what that is out of the activity, like, that activity is the clue that shows you, hey, you were drawn to this thing for a certain reason, right?
Yeah.
So, whether it's like um, sex or whatever the fuck it is, right?
Yeah.
Whatever your deal is that you're drawn to, unpack that and see what the clue is in it, right? And if you allow it rather than you like beating yourself up, you can free yourself of the cycle of it. But you can't free yourself of the cycle until you know what you're doing, right? Because the cycle can't complete itself until you experience both sides of it,
Yeah.
being affected by it and doing the very thing that you're resentful of the effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do both in order for the loop to kind of complete. Unless, and this sounds crazy to a lot of people, but if you get right with God, that karma, like some of those karmic loops, they you don't have to do as many of them, you know? That goes back to that looking on the heart thing, you know? And if you've done some shit, like, cuz you're responsible for all the vibrations of and the actions that you do here, be it in thought form or eventually in the physical form, right? You're responsible for that shit. But if you go to God, and you and your spirit start living on in this high vibration, it's so pure that it's like a lot of that stuff that just wasn't you. You just did it because you were around it or some kind of shit, but in your heart you never really felt right about it. You just never put your foot down. Just that kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to see that bullshit through to completion. It's like, all right, you get a pass on that shit. This is the shit that you just got to work on the main courses. You don't have to do all the prereqs over again. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Makes sense. But
Yeah, because you might have learned that shit. Like that's why you knew better from the get in that situation, just the way that it played out. You're not responsible for that one. You got to pass on that one because you got right. And I think this is like what adulthood is getting right for yourself and the people you love, right?
yeah.
Like when you start becoming responsible for more than yourself, whether that's you having a product or a service that you're like contributing to society, whatever it is, when you start kind of adding those layers and kind of giving your life shape and direction, that's when things begin to kind of change and evolve. And I think that we're just kind of on the precipice of that.
Yeah.
Like I'm like 27, so I'm looking at all my older bros that are like 30. I also have friends that are older that are like in their 40s and stuff, late
Mhm.
30s, and seeing the progression of what kind of emotional things, what are they navigating within themselves, trying to figure out about life during these different age ranges. And I've kind of just always observed that. I think it's a really powerful thing that can allow us to a little bit more grace in how we handle ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
that way we're not so judgmental and harsher, I guess.
Yeah, I have to do that with my younger friends. Cuz and and I get really like irritated at them a lot cuz I'm like, why are you fucking saying that? That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But then I got to remember how I was when I was their age. I'm like, I was kind of like a little shithead too. I would have called myself stupid if I talked to myself. Um, I'd have been like, why the fuck are you saying that? That's fucking stupid. And so, kind of remembering like, stop not comparing me now to them now. Compare me then to them now, because it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you were saying about looking at your older friends and stuff like that. You're comparing yourself to someone who doesn't even exist, and you got to remind yourself, you got to compare yourself to people who do, kind of sort of being like, oh well, this is where they are, so I shouldn't feel bad about where I'm at now, kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, I don't really want to say like as a comparison, but just as an observation. Like I believe there's like a spiritual maturity. Like there's things that happen at certain ages of your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when you're in your teens, you're really just like lustfully trying to kind of discover who you are in this more like physical way, but you don't have all the like spiritual connotations to it, right? You don't understand like consequences, the whole right and wrong thing hasn't. I think we all have it, but it hasn't fully set in the understanding of consequences of actions.
It's kind of
So we
like
just
there's this it's off of what you just said, the consequence of action.
mhm.
um Kids growing up are really mean for the most part. Like if you hear someone insulting someone and they're like 15, they're going all the way in. And but if you hear like you and me insulting somebody, we have a little bit more finesse, a little bit, we kind of can understand where a line might need to be drawn, right? Um and so I compare like kids to scorpions because it's the same thing. Like baby scorpions are the most lethal ones. If you get stung by a baby scorpion, you're fucked because they inject far more venom than needed.
And if you get stung on by a little kid and they really get you, they got your ass.
It's because they tell the truth. But
you might be
adults,
on
they
the
fuck with
internet,
people on some fake
you
shit.
know?
Yeah.
You might be on the internet somewhere.
Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, there's a different level of understanding certain boundaries and things like that as you get older. And as a kid, you don't understand that. So you don't know when to stop certain things. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's different, male to female.
Oh, for
So I
sure.
can't speak so much on the female side, but when I look at it's almost like inverse of male though. As men get older, right? It seems like as our dicks stop working, that's when women, like that coochie gets hot for real, for real. You know? Like now it's
Yeah.
like the woman, whoever she
Yeah.
was when she was younger, she's got to be like 2.0. She's sweating in fucking Walmart for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Seems like that's when women have this resurgence to like some R&B shit. You got a lady at her, she's like, I don't know, going through menopause. Now all of a sudden she's listening to 90s R&B again and shit. Just got grandkids and all that. No, but
Oh
no,
shit.
like in terms of like when we're looking at like a male's evolution, right? Where we're at in our like mid to late 20s, we're really trying to figure out, how strong we are physically, what we can kind of do in terms of like business and establishing yourself. There's a lot of stuff that just seems to go on as we progress that's you know we hit these age pockets and certain themes of life kind of come up. That's what
Mhm.
I'm saying. So not so much a comparison of like my life versus their life. It's like I'm comparing people that are in certain age ranges with each other and just looking at the themes of what they talk about,
Yeah.
the themes of what they struggle with, where their development is at by large, and it can kind of help you um, insulate yourself in a way and prepare yourself for life. Because if I start seeing you having struggles, it can give me a tip on how to deal with something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because like as I get older and I start looking at what it means to be humble, you know, as a man, it's almost like you know, no matter how grown you are, you're still a son.
Yeah.
No matter how wise or talented or knowledgeable a student you are, or a master you are, you're still a student.
Mhm.
Um, and so now when I approach things, I look for stuff that I used to avoid. I used to want to be able to just walk up and just get it, whatever it is, not have to ask nobody shit. I would be embarrassed to ask people.
Yeah.
Now if I'm dealing with something I don't know what to do, and you're like the grand master at this shit, or you're the one showing me, I'll go up and be like, show me how to do it, or even show me yourself and then kind of coach me through it. I'm looking for that mentorship. I'm looking for that advice, rather than fighting it and struggling with it and being like, no, I gotta find my own way,
Yeah.
you know? You find yourself dealing with any of that? Like, the older you get, the more you're like, or did you ever deal with that? I guess that's a better place to start.
Having a hard time to ask for help or
Yeah. Ask for help, ask for questions, seeking guidance and mentorship. Like, were you stubborn? Did you have to learn it on your own?
um I wasn't like that because I was stubborn. I was like that because I was quiet.
Hmm.
Um and I had anxiety, and I didn't know, like, yeah. So I didn't really ask for help um, very much because I was just an insecure kid growing up.
Mm.
And so as I've gotten older, and because of all of that, I've figured out ways that I can kind of problem solve and figure things out for myself. So now I actually don't even have to ask for help that often. But I am far better at it now than before.
So you're a really diligent researcher. That's what you are.
No.
No,
I'll
not
just
at all.
pound my face into it until I get it.
All right, I like your style.
like like if I'm trying to, okay, so for example, if I'm trying to clean my fucking keyboard, my this one right here, right?
Yeah.
You have to take the keys off.
Okay.
You have to
Baller keyboard.
you have to take the fucking keys off one by one.
Mhm.
Some keyboards are tricky to put the keys back on. And rather than looking up a YouTube video, I sat here fucking with the thing for like an hour trying to figure it out. So I don't research anything. I just figure it out. I like that was one of the reasons I was such a bad student in a lot of other areas is because I couldn't sit there and listen to the knowledge be just spewed at me and then expected to remember it and regurgitate it because I wrote notes down for 2 hours of the day.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that worked for me. I'm a
Mhm.
hands-on person, and if you're asking me to learn a subject that's all conceptual, I can't do it. Like once I got into like algebra 2,
Mhm.
didn't have a very easy time. Algebra 1 I was okay at, but I squeaked by. Geometry was a little bit more applicable because I was used to doing like measurements and stuff for building shit with my dad and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um but algebra 2, and where you get in like the complex letters and shit and all this other fucking bullshit, that was where I had a hard time. And dude, I spent so many hours after school with my fucking math teacher getting help in high school, and I still failed the last semester of algebra 2. And I
Hmm.
even only had I had a barely passing grade in the first semester.
That's strange because like geometry was the hardest thing in the world for me the first time I took it. I
Yeah.
lost it. Like algebra was easy. I didn't even you know how they would have you like write out the problems? I
Mhm.
would just do problems in my head up through algebra 1.
Yeah, I could do it. I could do that in algebra 1.
Yeah, most of the time I would do a lot of that stuff just in my head. But as I got into high school, it was like I sucked so bad in geometry the first time. I just failed with flying colors. Then I came back and like aced it, you
Yeah.
know? And then after that, I wound up taking like extra math classes for some reason. Like I don't know why. I just really enjoyed math now that I look at it.
I actually have to correct myself because I lied about how good I was at geometry. I remember now. So what happened when I went into or not college, high school, I started out in algebra 1 as a freshman. I
Yeah.
was doing so bad in that, the counselor calls me in and says, "Hey, let's do this." And they put me into algebra A for the last half of the first semester and then algebra B in the second semester. And then so I had to do that, and then geometry in as a sophomore.
Hold on.
And
What the fuck is the A and the B about? Okay, you're gonna have to
so
explain.
okay,
So they
so
broke one course into two for you. That's dope.
so algebra A and algebra B is their they're chunks of algebra 1
Yeah.
extended into longer course.
Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's dope.
And
Okay.
so they're just different pieces of it. Um and so going into geometry after that, um I remember that I needed to pass geometry to get into algebra 2. And I remember that I needed algebra 2 because I was applying for PSU, and you have to have passed an algebra 2 class to go to that, from what I was told. And
Okay.
so I was talking to my geometry teacher, who at the time was actually kind of known as a bitch, but was never really that way towards me, except for maybe once when I kind of deserved it. And uh, so I was talking to her, and she actually was willing to give me a quiz at the end of the year to get my grade to a passing geometry grade, so that I could go to algebra 2, because I wasn't gonna pass geometry, and she let me take that thing.
Should I slide?
Yeah. And so
That's cool.
I actually had a couple teachers like that. One was in college. It was my Spanish teacher in college. I fucking the second I think it was the second semester, because it was the last year or the last term I needed of a foreign language, and I was like, I am not gonna pass this final if I go to it. So I emailed her and I was like, yo, uh, I'm out of the state. I had a family emergency. And I didn't even go to the fucking final, bro. Because I was just so bad at understanding fucking language. I just didn't go. And I was texting my partner because it was a group final. So you had to go back and forth. And I was telling him, like, yo, dude, I don't fucking know any of this shit. And he was like, word. And he goes, I was like, I'll email her and let her know. And then fucking tell her I talked to you and that you're still gonna go or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, bro, sorry. I'm not gonna be there, man. But yeah, so I've had a couple teachers be willing to give me a fucking squeak by shit, and I'm thankful for that. And so otherwise I wouldn't have been in the fucking film program where we met.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I got a lot of squeak bys, but they weren't on the like scorecards. I feel like they would tax me hella hard. But I always tested really well when I would do stuff,
Yeah.
but I was always acting up. So they would like threaten me with shit, but I just was like so uninvested because
Yeah.
I was like, I just got to get through this. And like, I guess halfway through high school, I realized my GPA was like unrecoverably shitty, you
Yeah.
know? And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not, going for a scholarship, right?
Bro, I didn't even care
So
about my GPA.
yeah, dude, I took pride in it. Like, to be honest, I was like, I'm not a stupid fucking person. Like, it would piss me off. I'd be like, dude, why are you guys up my ass? I interact with this class more than anybody else. Anybody else. Like, yeah, I may be a little bit disruptive in it, but that's how I learn.
Yeah.
Because similar to what you were saying about taking notes, bro, my brain just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
If you tell me a story, I will not forget that motherfucker. You know what I mean? Especially if you let me interact with you and make it fun. Oh yeah. And what I found is it actually helped other kids to learn too, you know? And
Yeah.
oftentimes not if I would always annoy at least like one or two maybe like preppy kids or like a weird kid that's just angry.
Yeah.
You know, like a kid that's just over there just angry all the time, stinky hoodie and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there was always a little bit of that, um, where every now and again we would freak out and spaz out on each other. But otherwise, I found that most people would be like, "Yeah, I learned a lot because they're at ease now."
Yeah.
You
They
know,
don't have to be the one to ask the questions. And
and
you
I'm
were.
asking like crucial questions.
Yeah.
You know
Even
what I
if they
mean?
sound kind of simple or stupid or whatever the fuck, like you're asking them.
No, bro. Like I was in law class asking shit about like weed legality. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay, okay.
Like, but it was shit that was actually on people's mind. You know, things that as a kid in high school, especially, these are pertinent things for you,
Yeah.
you know, especially if you went to Benjamin Franklin High School, you know, this was what it was. But it was a way of me being able to take this into the real world,
Yeah.
you know, and make it funny. And I think that was like what was crucial about learning for me. I don't know how we got to this point in the
I
story. What
think
were we talking about?
I have no idea. We were talking about, I don't remember, but I got something else to talk about on top of
All right,
what you were
deep
talking about.
down the rabbit hole. Let's take a look.
Let's just move
Yeah.
on. Fucking, I learned that, and I kind of realized this while you were talking about how you learn, is
Mhm.
I learn best if I can go do something and then you tell me what I did wrong in the doing of the thing. Like, for example, when we were in our first year of film school and we were watching and we would get sent out by Jack. Jack was our professor, for
Mhm.
anyone who doesn't know. And he would make us do these very simple projects and say, do it, just do this topic. And we had to go do that topic or whatever the assignment was. And then we would
Mhm.
come back and review them. And then he would point out the things in that broke the rules of film.
Mhm.
And we would get to visually see, like, in our own work, what was wrong
Mhm.
in it. And he would be able to point it
Mhm.
out and tell us how not to do that again. And
But he always also gave us the ability to justify why we did it.
that
That
too.
was part of the fucking genius of
Yeah.
that program when we first got into it. And I really got to salute JD and Jack, that was really something special even though Jack was a little bit older,
Yeah.
and so like when we got to him he was kind of like, "Bro, I've been doing this like forever."
Yeah.
Still, the sentiment of what they were teaching, if you want to be a filmmaker, just go make film.
Yeah.
It's gonna suck at first. Just go make film.
Oh yeah.
Well, no matter what, and when you come back to me, I can tell you what worked and what didn't.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a great philosophy because in life, once you're out of school, it's not like that instructor just disappears. The instructor just changes form. Now the instructor is really the final product. What worked, what didn't work. It's the same damn thing. The story, the final product will tell you exactly what that instructor would tell you, if you just observe,
Facts.
but getting into something and just being thrown in the deep end with it, I think you're right. That is probably everybody's best way to learn.
Facts. I Yeah, I don't have anything to add on to that. But
My grandpa would always tell me the only substitute for knowledge is experience. Like that's the only thing that's going to supersede the knowledge of something.
yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't, if you get that
Yeah.
right. Say you experience something too early, you're unprepared for it. You have a terrible experience, right?
Yeah.
That might not really be so telling about the experience as, what it really is. Then you can learn more about it and changes it. Go
Yeah.
back and do it later and it's really fun, but it sucked the first time.
There's a lot to learn from life. And if people were more willing to look at themselves in a little bit of a better light, but also with true analysis, I think we would have a lot more happy people.
I think a big, like, debatably right now, one of the biggest, possibly the biggest area is um, people are not informed. And I'm learning this myself as I'm learning, like, the real estate processes and stuff. There's so many other dimensions and different, like, layers to money and how to deal with it that if we were actually taught to explore that differently, just that one concept, because creativity is so integral,
Yeah.
you know, in just everything, whether it's technology you're creating or art, you know, and it's super imperative for you to learn how to be independent if you don't want to work a 9 to 5, you know,
Yeah.
and if you really want to build the structure of your life, you need to learn that stuff. And um, it's interesting because it's the same transferable skill of you doing the hard work of asking yourself questions. but sometimes it's harder to start there, right? It's
Yeah.
easier for me to start with business with other people because there's these conditions of business, you know, and how things are done and conducted in professional environments, you know, that make them consistent. Where like internally, there's inconsistencies there, you know, and so I might not be able to handle this, but once it's outside of me a little bit, I can deal in this realm,
Yeah.
you know? But if you never double back and start doing that work on yourself, which is really where you should start, all makes everything probably easier in the long run. But I think you're going to be atrophied in some area of your life, you know?
Hmm.
Something just ain't going to be working, you know? And I think that's what's so important when you look at the real masters of life are super duper um, passionate, and they find a way to use that passion to balance their imbalance.
Hmm.
Because usually that passion drives them to do some really extreme shit, right? But the real like grandmaster sensei type people to kind of peep game from are the people that do it all, you know,
Yeah.
at like that 90% rating. If you can do everything, you know, upper 80s into that early 90%, you're crucial. Now, I want to learn from that person.
Boom.
You know, that's attainable success right there. You know, you don't want to get something and not be able to maintain the shit. And so you have to learn how it works. But I think if you learn how to handle money, you're willing to dream different.
Yeah.
You know, you're willing to accept incremental progress differently. You're willing to look at stuff um, as not so far fetched when you stop looking at, you know, price tags of $100,000+, you know?
Yeah.
Like $500,000 doesn't look like $500,000 on paper when you're talking about a couple percent of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. You start looking at life differently. You liberate yourself once you
Being
take the
willing to
fear
lose
out of
some
that.
to win some, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, in any part of life, being willing to lose some to win some is always like a. It's like understanding when sacrifice is necessary, kind of thing.
Mhm. Well, it's
Sometimes it
interesting
is,
because
sometimes it's not.
I think I've said this on the podcast before, but if me and you are working the same job, right, getting
Hmm.
paid the same amount of money, but I'm investing and you're not, I'm actually living a harder life than you. Like you live with way more luxuries on the day in and day out, you know?
Yeah.
And I have to be more comfortable with less than you, even though we're at the same level of
Yeah.
employment.
You have to be
You
more
know what I mean?
comfortable with the suck in a certain amount for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But your
But that's the thing,
willingness
like,
to suffer through the suck gives you the ability to be further ahead in the future.
but now how do we take the suck out of the suck? That's the
You
mastery part,
you
right?
blow.
That is where we start looking at
You
the people that have fucking succeeded, you know,
Yeah.
in amazing ways. And we start studying those people. Who took the suck out of the suck of that process?
Well, the only reason well, never mind. I was about to say something kind of fucking stupid. It was a high thought. So we'll forget about that. But
Okay. I was just gonna say that's the kind of like yogi way to look at it. Is
yeah.
like, all right, now if I can look at this investing that I'm doing not as something that sucks, but do it and do it gladly, now everything changes. The energy around that thing just fucking changes.
Being happy regardless.
And well, yeah, but
Wraps back to
on
the
top of
beginning.
that, bro, it's just choosing to be happy unconditionally, you know?
Regardless, yeah.
And I know that's what you're saying.
No, I know.
But the beauty of that is that you've now taken you're wealthier than that person, like in that analogy of us working the same job. Now you're truly wealthier because we both work the same job. He probably spends all that, has more luxury than me, and is less happy than me. I don't spend as much money as that dude. I have more coming to me for it, and I feel like I have more right now because of it.
Yeah, I think
Like
that's
that's
because
the master.
it's like I feel like that comes from a feeling of purpose. Because an investor has purpose for what they're doing. Whereas someone who's just like, they're taking their money, they're putting in a savings account or a checking account, and then they spend it on the shit that they want. They might be happy, but how long is that happiness gonna last if they have no purpose for what they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And so an
Mm-hmm.
investor does. They've kind of already, they're like, well, I have a purpose for what my money's going to do, and it's going to help me be more comfortable in the future. And so I'm willing to be here and I'm willing to be happy because I know what I'm going to get.
Mm-hmm. You're already there.
Yeah.
You're living there already right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the wisdom of it. You know, that's the special magic in there. Is that you're already living the reality that you want. That's what I mean when I talk about progress. You know, and the frequency of progress. You know,
Yeah.
it's satisfied, but yet you're still eager for more. Shout out to Abraham Hicks because they actually said that a lot. But no, man, I think this has been a pretty damn good episode so far.
So far, I think so.
Sounds like both of us are just considering a lot about life.
Yeah,
You know,
I think we've talked about so much. We're now in that deep thought stage where we kind of have to process and analyze ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
So
1000%. That means that we hopefully any viewers that are still sticking around are doing the same.
yeah,
Also, just so everybody knows, in the next like couple months or so, I'm gonna be looking to get more guests back into the podcast rotation and stuff. With me having not been working and stuff, I just don't meet as many people. Um, and so I haven't had as many people on the podcast because I've just been working on me. So we took it back to the kind of square one of just me and you for a little while. But expect as things progress, this podcast is really going to develop, and we're going to start getting some Happy Hoodlums projects out and products as well.
big facts. Just wait.
Mm-hmm.
Early 23
Yep, we're
from
coming,
the
baby.
3.
Yeah. All right. Until next week. Signing out. Peace.
Peace.